So, joining me for this episode of the HealthTech Headlines podcast is Travis Somerville. He's Director of Artificial Intelligence, better known as AI, at Syra Health. Welcome, Travis. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Christine.
This is such a hot topic, artificial intelligence or AI. So for those of us who just don't understand this minefield, tell us, what is artificial intelligence at its very base?
Artificial intelligence at its very base is really just an accurate mathematical model of the world. Maybe the 70s, the 80s, we had a lot of breakthroughs in statistics, which are also kind of a mathematical model of the world. And I think what distinguishes AI is that we reduce all that noise. So when you're trying to make a mathematical model of the world, there's always real signal, and then there's also noise. And so some of the techniques and things that you're just seeing today are just scaling up those mathematical models really big with very little noise. So that's the best answer I can give. There's practical answers as well.
And how does it work with learning? So you take a mathematical model and then do you apply words to it? I mean, how is it, when I use my Amazon Alexa and it makes suggestions based on things that it's seen me do or ask for, how does that mathematical model come to life?
Yeah, so I'll try not to bore you and we'll move on from the topic, but there's convolutional neural networks. And basically you can take a whole bunch of data about people's behaviors and try to predict what they're likely to do or want or whatnot. But I think what we're probably on the main topic is transformers, which led to the whole chat GPT. And transformers feels something more tangible that all of us can get on board with, because it got to the intelligence level of a model that we can talk to. I mean, I think you've been on ChatGPT or things like that, right? It feels tangible, right?
Okay. So you have a transformer that works with artificial intelligence to learn as we're doing everyday tasks and including working. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just a technique that we've gotten to the point where we can make fire with fire. So, the models are so advanced, we can start to use these models to teach it more language or fine tune it towards a task that we want to do. Like in healthcare, you would definitely have to fine tune it on, a corpus of medical material or a therapist's point of view of how you want to approach talking to someone, right? Because the type of talk that you get right now when you go to any of these LLM chats, LLM is large language model, but any of these chat programs that have AI, you can feel it's like it's trained on the internet itself. It's not actually a complete expert on exactly the way you need it to be for your corporation or your product and whatnot. So that's the data science that goes into taking the AI and making sure it's good for your product.
Interesting. So if I have it right, just let me check it with you, the expert. You've got the mathematical model of the world that's AI, and then you've got this large language model that you sort of put on top of it to make it come to life and actually learn in a way that you can understand it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Thank you. I feel smarter for knowing you already. So shortly after AI came out and became the hot topic that it is, there were new terms almost instantly about conversational AI and generative AI. What do those terms mean?
Yeah, one's kind of a bigger term and encompasses the other. So if you start with generative AI, you're talking about generating artwork like voice, video, pictures, but it can also generate complete stories. It can generate words in conversations. So really, conversational AI is kind of a subset of generative AI. And conversational AI is really easy for us to understand. It's words going back and forth. A little bit of a twist on conversational AI is it's a specialty and sometimes bringing in knowledge, maybe about your company, or in the case of healthcare, about your patient or whatever task is at hand, and making sure that that knowledge gets put into the conversation as well. So that's really the hot topic around retrieving that and augmenting your conversation and generating one that's tailored to you. Something else interesting in just the thing of generative AI that you'll see within, I don't know, I don't want to put a number of years on it, but very quickly is starting to generate like a movie for an audience of one, right? It's like, it knows everything about you, and it's going to generate a story for your children that night, or, something special just to you. So the whole thing is like very tailored to you. It's like YouTube, the iPad, now it's AI for you.
Interesting stuff. So there are a lot of people, and I've certainly seen a lot of news reports speaking on behalf of people who are fearful that AI may take over their jobs. Is that fear real, do you think?
Well, I think people have real fear. I mean, even before AI came along, if you got a downturn in the economy or anything's changing in the industry a lot, you got a lot of fear around what's going to happen to my job. I think there's an internet commercial that I've seen on YouTube quite a bit, and it kind of sums it up. It says, "Don't fear AI. You need to fear Amy, who's learning AI to do your job better."
I got it.
But if you think about it, AI is first of all, your human brain uses about equivalent like 20 watts of power. Some people even say it works on the quantum level, but it's obviously working on really intelligent analog level. And a lot of computer chips are actually trying to get to our analog level of intelligence. So as AI gets better, you're a human tool user. You get to use that AI. So it's really a complex system. It's not just because AI can almost do your job, you're out of a job. No, it might mean that you're more productive. And in the case of say a doctor or a healthcare worker, they're probably already overloaded, right? So we're kind of in a renaissance where in the next, I still don't want to put a time on it, but the next good while, until you totally trust AI to completely do everything you do, which there's some problems with that, right? It's just going to be an uplift. That nurse is going to be able to maybe check the meds he or she's given you more accurately, and dosages will be more perfect. Or that doctor can use the scribe service and maybe spend more time eye-to-eye contact while that scribe service is kind of like a magic Harry Potter quill pen, taking notes for that doctor and getting it into the complex EMR system. So in a sense, yeah, I get the fear, but let me ask you a few questions, because this will let you know, if AI and robots could take over a job, how come it hasn't happened today? Let me ask you a few questions. Would you trust, you're going to see humanoid robots soon, a humanoid robot holding your 1-month-old and changing his diaper?
Absolutely not.
Of course you wouldn't. I mean, not till you really trust that robot. How about driving a bus full of Boy Scouts to go way out into the wilderness and camp for a weekend?
Never.
Right. How about a robot nurse administering your IV and then picking your dosage and putting the medicine in the bag?
Not yet.
Right. So just think about that. I want to it's a level of trust. And so knowledge workers like you and I, we're, at a regular corporation, writing words, emails, doing thoughts. We're actually the most susceptible, because you don't need a robot to replace us. You just need someone who can type, words, right? And so, would you replace your C-level, your whole CEO with an AI bot right now? There's no way you would, because, you use GPT-4, you use the language models. It's like talking to Dory, right, from Finding Nemo. At the present level of AI, it's smart, it's creative, it's funny like Dory is, but often I find myself reintroducing the whole concept of like, hold on, you forgot the whole strategy that we were just talking about 5 minutes ago. Let me reintroduce the strategy. There's only so far you can take it, and you start to perceive the difference between our quantum level analog minds and whatever mathematical version they've come up with to try to be like us. Definitely nowhere near being able to replace our jobs. But I would say in 1 to 2 generations, yeah. And then we'll have to talk about what that means. But right now we're in a golden era for another generation.
And how long are those generations? Any ability to put timelines on them, or?
I'm in a human generation. Like I think for 20 years we'll be in a golden era where, by the end of 20 years, 20 or 30 years max, I think, and other experts have put timelines on it, but don't hold me to this, but there will come a time where all expertise that we have and strategic level of thinking will be good enough that if we wanted that other robot or AI to perform that task, it could probably do it. And I'm talking all the way up to the level of your doctor, right? Like free healthcare practically, of talking to a doctor to assess and triage things. A lot of strategic thinking. So as humans, I think we're still in the driver's seat though. We get to make those decisions. I think it comes down to some ethics and things like that.
Okay. At Syra Health, I know you talk a lot about ethics and ethical and responsible use of AI. What are some of those conversations like?
Yeah, well, I mean, really, AI isn't as powerful as we make it out to be right now. It's just a very useful tool. And so it's not, let me tell you about some of the problems we've seen. We've seen hallucinations, right? So you don't want to have a chatbot making up some medical advice, right? So hallucinations are a problem, and there's easy fixes for those, right? There's some science behind it. Everybody's caught up on how to detect a hallucination and just say, I'm not going to let the chatbot give that answer, right? So hallucinations are one of those ethical things that if left unchecked, that's like leaving a power tool in a child's hands, right? That's not ethically responsible. You would unplug the cord and put it up on the shelf. You'd have rules that it needs to follow. So that's a lot of the explainable AI is taking on some of the, well, it's a dangerous tool, make sure you use it right. So there's that. And then you would hold companies accountable for like, okay, you jammed AI in your product. What did you do on behalf of the ethics? So that's one thing. There is another thing that is, what if the AI gets smarter than us? Surely you've resonated with the, we all have, right?
Definitely.
So I think there's the political ethics of like regulatory capture to where it gets trapped and that's kind of a bad word. Regulatory capture kind of means like someone got the better end of it and they get to use all the AI for themselves and you don't. But there's also just the general political things that you're going to see come up in 2024 and 2025 all over the place about how fast we want to go, with this.
How fast do we want to let AI learn? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And as the AI becomes more powerful, how powerful do we want it to be? I mean, there's already some legislation that says, there's a certain amount of energy and like computer processing that goes into training one of these. It's huge. Like you're starting to need like the power of a whole city, to create one of these new models. And there is already some legislation that says, okay, if your model is using more than this much energy and this much compute power, it's going to be classified in a different way than what we have today. Everything we have today is way under that threshold by a few magnitudes.
I love it. You mentioned hallucinations. Can you just briefly, for the audience, explain what's meant by an AI hallucination so folks understand it?
Oh, yeah. So the current AI we have just wants to please you. It's actually got really good bedside manner, and it just wants to finish the sentence. So if you start to say, give me a list of my medicines. It actually has the power to like list your first 3 medicines as very factual because it came from its memory. And then it wants to give you a 4th one. And it's like, how about medicine number 4 and 5? And they don't even exist.
I see.
You could ask it for characters in a movie. You know, I asked it to rewrite the Encanto script, and it came up with new characters that didn't exist in the thing.
Why does that happen? Because it's programmed to want to make additional suggestions, or because it's like a glitch?
Well, the very nature of its DNA, the thing that's giving us the good results with like ChatGPT-4 or Gemini from Google, or Meta now has Llama 3 out. Anthropic has Claude AI out. All of those are built on this transformer model, which is like trying to predict just the next word. So if you, I don't know, if you played like a creative human game, you might like start saying a sentence, and then as you go along, you know, you just keep making up sentences. So most of the time it gets it right. And there's technical things. There's something called the temperature. You can turn the temperature way down, and it really stops that. Like it tries to make up new information. Or you could turn the temperature up, which is like saying, could you be super creative? And so the model is able to respond to any of those type of personalities of like very dry and factual versus like, I need you to be creative because I am trying to think of a new movie script that hasn't been thought of, right? So the thing is, even when you have the temperature at a certain level, it could still slip in an extra like new thought. So
I got it. Thanks for explaining it. It was super helpful. So, and I know at Cyber Health, when you talk about ethical and responsible use, you all are committed to it, and you want folks to know there's always a human intervention. So, and human oversight. That's so good to hear. There are also conversations going on out in the world around open and closed AI. Can you help us to understand sort of what's at the heart of the debate?
Sure. I think it's really about a control of power, as if you were playing a game in life and you came to a moment and you're like, well, let's make some rules. Let's make sure, like fire was just introduced. You get a hold of fire and you got your fire at your campsite. A couple people have fire at the campsite and they're learning about fire. And then someone steps in and says, wait, fire's really dangerous. Let's put some rules. Nobody else gets to make fire without like red tape, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what it is. And the ironic thing about OpenAI as a company, it started with kind of a, I don't know, like an open source. This is going to be open source. We're going to give back to the world. You help us fund this. You allow us to do this. And this beautiful, really intelligent general intelligence, we're going to give that back to the world. Well, you know, it turned in complete for profit. I have nothing against for profit. It's just that at the end of the day, if this is just like fire was, you know, would you like everybody to be able to have, you know, a box of matches in the house and light a fire when they want? Or do you want like a couple of companies controlling it? So that is the debate. It doesn't really matter where I sit in the debate. You know, I have my own opinions about some regulations good, some isn't. But you have to like peel it back a little bit and understand, is someone just making a rule to keep their advantage on the game board, or are they're scaring you? Or is it a good rule, like that's very ethical and that's something we need to do? Like there's no easy answer on that.
It's an interesting debate, and thanks for the analogy. That's really helpful in understanding it. So talking about AI specifically at Cyber Health, how does the company use AI in its products?
Well, first, I was brought in to look at the entire portfolio of health products and apply AI across that. And so we have some really neat stuff in place. One of the interesting things that we have is the Serenity app, and it's a mental health app, and it's a preventative mental health app. And what I mean by that is it has ways to actually take all the signals from the exercises you do and really recommend good cognitive behavioral exercises to do further. It has an AI journal to where a lot of people that are experiencing mental health disorders will write very little in a journal. So it's a very encouraging AI to help them completely get some thoughts out. And it's based on a clinical study. And we also can predict mood, right? Like how much more insomnia you have compared to your cohort, or maybe even how you will feel in the future in 2 weeks time. So it's all a type of AI that has guardrails and rules to perform in a certain way, and it's based on actual clinical evidence.
Exciting. Sounds like something that's so needed with the mental health crisis in the world today. What do you think overall the future holds for AI?
Well, I think very soon you're going to see a lot of robotics, humanoid robots, being introduced into the real world gradually, right? There's different levels of trust. That, remember when I went back to like, would you trust your robot to do X, Y, or Z? So you'll know that that level of trust has reached at least a general intelligence, right? So we have AI, which is good at parroting us right now. We have AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And what general intelligence is instead of just really good at a specific task, it's good at lots of tasks. Like you get a butler robot in your house, it could probably be taught to sweep the way you want to sweep and put the dishes up the way you want, right? So there's that level. But a higher level is going to come is where they actually will become self-aware and start to learn on their own, right? They'll be, and it's that level where you start to trust, all right, maybe I could, have this robot replace me on a sensitive task that takes a lot of self-awareness, right? That's a really hard thing to get to. We're very far away from that.
That is interesting stuff. AI combined with robotics, the future of the Jetsons that we all sort of heard about and maybe thought was going to be these days. Sounds like it's still a ways off. I like the description you used of AI. It's just a very useful tool. I think that's a great way to think about it. And I really appreciate you taking a difficult topic and explaining it to us through analogies in a way that a more general audience can understand it. So Travis Somerville with Syra Health, the Director of Artificial Intelligence, best of luck with the continuing projects, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Christine.